the starting lineup for the Keeping It Real show. From Oak Point, Texas, it's the Tokyo Tex, the Kamikaze Cowboy, the Sukiyaki Jockey, the MOT, the Man of Trail, Tim Kimura! And from the home of the San Antonio Spurs, the captain of the team, the man with the dream, the man behind the wheel for Keeping It Real, Brad Jewett!
Hello, everybody. Let us know where you're tuning in from tonight. I'm Brad Jewett.
I'm Tim the Trailman.
Keeping it real.
And now, Brad and Tim.
And now, the starting lineups for the Keeping It Real show. From Oak Point, Texas, the Kamikaze Cowboy, the Tokyo Tex, the Sukiyaki Jockey, the MOT, the man of trail, Tim Kimura. And now, from the home of the San Antonio Spurs, the captain of the team, the man with the dream, the man behind the wheel, at Keeping It Real, Brad Jewett. Whew. What a night. Take a deep breath. Sit back, buckle your seatbelt. Be ready for an incredible ride tonight. We've got Robin Frid and Kelly Mcdowall in the house to talk about some horsemanship, which, as we all know, is a very, very popular topic within all of our industries. And who better to have than these two guys to join us? Tim, do you got anything to add before we bring these two brainiacs in here?
We have a lot to cover, but it's great. I'm excited. I'm excited all day. So I'm getting.
I know one thing I want to add before we bring him in. So Friday we have Miss Jackie Kershke coming in, going to tell us about the Red Bud and what to expect there, and along with the other horsemanship questions, not just the class horsemanship, but she's an amazing horsewoman. So we want to make sure we pick her brain there a little bit. And then we have a new announcement for who we have on Monday. Who do we have Monday, Tim?
It's Sarah B. Simons, one of my neighbors.
Sarah Simons, which is going to be kind of cool because she's going to be there for the paint show this weekend, and then she's going to be there for the Red Bud the following week. So we're going to kind of get a little insight into what to kind of expect with this deal coming into the Red Bud too. So I think that's kind of a cool opportunity.
Right.
So we got to, and then when I show up to the Red Bud on Tuesday, and then we start these live shows, which is going to be awesome. We can't wait to do. So make sure everybody stops by and says hello when we're doing these live shows at the Red Bud. All right. Let's rock and roll, Timmy. How about
Let's bring him
in. Robin Frid and Kelly Mcdowall. Everybody give you virtual hand claps here. Yes. There we go. Everybody got their mics live. Everybody say hello.
Hello.
Good.
Hello.
Yep, we got you. All right, this is the point of the show that Mr. Tim Kimura takes the wheel.
They seem so shy.
Give him 2 minutes, man. Maybe 60 seconds.
Let's do these intros. Let's do Kelly Mcdowall. I love it. So let's give us our intro a little bit. Tell us where you're born. Tell us about yourself and where you are in the horse industry.
All right. I was born in Iowa. My mom and dad, Kit and Millie McDowall. I really wasn't. I was always very horsey, but I really wasn't into the showing so much until I was out of college. I had both of my families were farmers and very agricultural until my mom and dad, and my dad worked for IBM for a very long time and retired from there. And, mom and dad always always had an acreage, and, we had a horse that I could ride. I had a pony I could ride. And we just I had a friend named Gene Murphy that it wasn't my friend. It was mom and dad's friend that bought my first horse from, that black one you can see there. And, I kind of credit that horse for teaching me the rhythm of it. He must have been really good. I had no idea what he was, but I would go to the county fair, and I would maybe go to an open show or two a year, and I can remember once or twice or three times maybe going to an actual quarter horse show, and that horse did really well no matter where we went in the Western Pleasure. So I really wish I could go back and ride him again, but just thinking back, that one must have taught me a lot of things. I don't really remember what he was like, other than I just kind of kicked him around and rode him like I did the barrels. I did all the speed stuff and, just everything with him, but he must have had a good rhythm to him.
A couple of things that Tim and I, when we were looking at those photos that popped out to us, and Steve Meadows kind of alluded to it. How about that Chachi haircut Mr. Joe Montana there.
What about it? I used to have hair. It used to be on my head instead of my face.
And then Tim was like, "Hey, does Kelly have his hair sticking out the front of his hat on his cowboy hat in that one picture?" We love it. We love these old pictures. Absolutely. He's not ashamed of it either, dadgummit. I love it. All right, Mr. Frid.
Hey, so Robin Frid, most people know I'm from Southern Ontario. And grew up with a little bit of a horsey influence. My mother was involved in horses recreationally, and we showed paints. And my brother actually started showing before I did. I followed quickly thereafter and kind of doing the walk trot and showing the paint circuit in Southern Ontario, and really, didn't really leave that area until later into my later youth years that we would kind of travel a little bit more. But as you can see from the one picture, I actually grew up, I started with a little bit more of an English background. I used to take jumping lessons once a week. And I don't know that I had a horse that was a good jumper, but we started on one side and went to the other side. And I spent quite a few years doing the English before I really switched over to doing much of the Western events. And my first trainer, I grew up showing with before that I was with Bonnie and Larry Miller in New York. That was kind of the first time that I really traveled, and I learned a ton from them. They were, at that point, they were the it couple in the paints, and Larry did everything from the Western riding to the reining to the pleasure, and Bonnie did the hunter hack and the under saddle. And so I rode with them for a period of time, and then I rode with various trainers that helped me in Southern Ontario. I actually took lessons from the Pat Carter a few times when I was in my youth, and later on I ended up going to ride with Garth and Snisa Gooding and finished out my youth career with them. And so I was always involved in horses. In high school, I kind of like quit school for half a year, which was really unheard of at that point in time. And I did it just to show, and then went back. And mom and dad, my parents, Ralph and Margaret Frid, they kind of were like, "Okay, you got a half a year off. Now you have to step it up and keep up here." So in Canada, we went to school for 5 years in high school. And I managed to graduate in 4, figured out that I missed half, so really 4.5, but 4 years of actual school. So my last semester of high school, I've told people before, I had the greatest half year of high school ever. I had phys ed in the morning, and then my afternoon I had off, and all I did was run and lift weights and play rugby. And I loved it. So, it was
like
a great
dream. It's like my dream school right there.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I grew up from Canada. Shout out Johnny Mueller. Played hockey.
Oh yeah, he took the bait, man. He took the bait.
Oh yeah.
Jonathan already commented on the hockey picture.
Yeah, I played hockey all through my youth. I played soccer in the summer, hockey in the winter, and then finished with rugby. And then kind of went on from there, and I've been real fortunate. I really didn't want to go to college. I knew that my following was like to do the horses. So luckily enough, Garth and Snisa offered me a job. So I was one of the assistant trainers with them, along with Tony Fee. Shout out to Tony Fee. He's probably not on tonight, but I worked for Garth and Snisa for about 4 years before I moved to Texas, and moved to Houston. I worked for Danny Cannon for almost 4 years. And then went up to Burleson, and I worked for Rawhide Blackwell before I ended up back in the Houston area. And I worked almost 10 years for Doug and Bobby Poland. So.
Are you like 60 years old, man? That's a lot, dude.
I did. I spent a lot of time as an apprentice. So
you did.
I did. I started when I was 18. Moved to Garth and Sneese's when I was 18.
Well, that falls right into what Cleve and Steve had said the other night about, these young guys. What do you need to do? Go find somebody to work for.
Yeah.
You know, quit working for somebody for 6 months and then say, okay, I've got a client, let's go. You know, that's good testament to that.
60 years isn't a lot of years, please. Okay, I have
Sorry, sorry.
I have one thing. Can I do a big shout out to Steve and Becky Meadows because it's their 25th anniversary?
It is. That's right. Happy anniversary.
Yes, I read that this morning, so I thought I'd say it on our show.
You bet.
Okay, boys, ready to go?
Let's rock and roll, Tim.
Try it. Okay, so let's definitely start talking about the basic horsemanship position. So perhaps you guys can give me an overall what you want to talk about. Kelly?
Let's just go with, do you have the pictures of Claire in the good position?
Let's give the good position picture.
So I want to say thank you to my daughter, Claire Mcdowall. And before we start getting comments on the ponytail, she busted it out of bed the other day and was our model for some pictures before anybody got to the barn. And I didn't make her put her hair up. So we really don't do ponytails in the horsemanship. So if you can leave that off the screen, that would be just fine. She is really, for me, those are really good positions. Her legs are right under her. Her shoulders are good. Her back straight. Good contact with her horse. I think everything looks just sit as Robin Frid would say, she's sitting right in the middle. That's what we're after.
There you go.
And you know, if we had to score it for you know, +1, +2, +3, I could even toy with this being an excellent position for me. The one thing that I find so often when I get new riders that come into our program or someone that I clinic or whatever is I'm always trying to tell them, soften this, relax that, quiet that, you know, and everybody wants so much to just sit perfect. And what I love about that picture of Claire is she is sitting in the middle and she looks really effective. Her leg is right underneath of her hip. I mean, and I'm not one that goes into a whole lot of detail, but everything about her looks soft, you know, that's not in a rude way. She looks very strong, but it's just soft and it's flowing. And it looks like if she were to go forward, she would be with that horse and have a connection and not just be a stick figure up there that happens to be sitting perfectly still, you know, and that's my pet peeve.
Yeah. I think that's a really big deal. I think that the horsemanship position gets overdone a lot. I agree with Robin that the biggest problem isn't getting them to sit up and sit straight. It's getting them to relax their body and not overarch, not get their legs too far back, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Is there a couple components you guys can talk about and maybe why we're looking for those situations? Robin?
Well, this class is all about your ability to communicate with the horse. And, you know, Tim quoted me earlier, but, you know, I encourage people to read the rule book and then I paraphrase it. And my paraphrase for this class is it's your ability to communicate with the horse and that horse's ability to accept that communication. And if you don't have a fundamentally correct body position, it's going to come shining through in all of your maneuvers as far as your ability to connect with that horse. You're either going to be behind the rhythm, in front of the rhythm. You know, we talk about your leg being underneath of you. The biggest part of that horse's body is their heart girth. That is the biggest piece. So you have got to get them to lift their back, you have got to get them to pick up that enormous piece of their body. When your leg is too far back, you're just picking up their flank and making their hip go up and down. You know, so that's going to come out in all of your transitions. It's going to come out when you pivot. It's going to come out when you change leads. And, you know, another example I always give is in the horsemanship class, if all of a sudden I threw a cow into the arena, you should have the ability to survive. If I threw a jump in the arena, you should have the ability to somewhat survive. And when you have a poor body position, you are not going to survive either of those things.
Maybe throw up the picture of Claire with her back too arched and her feet too back, so we can show people what we're
over some of these incorrect positions.
And like we were talking about earlier, that's somebody walks in the arena and walks up to the start cone and they look like that, that's going to catch my eye, and I'm going to be watching through those transitions. And, it may be a really good horse that can get through those transitions for the most part, but somewhere in that pattern, there's going to be a telltale sign that she's not connected with that horse in the right spots. And, she's not sitting down. She's just sort of rigid and got her feet way too far back. And that's what Robin was talking about, being able to control the rib cage of that horse. Her feet are back too far to do that right there.
Could you see that rider's position running down, chasing a cow?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if I'm a good horse trainer or not, but I think I'm okay. But I don't have a single horse in my barn that rider could make do anything.
Right.
I'm not real good at dummyfying a horse. I don't make them complicated, but if you don't ride it and be effective, my horses are very poor. And if you rode my best horse right now, it would not do anything correctly if you got on it in that manner.
Can we throw another picture up?
Let's go to the next one, Kona. Whichever one you want to bring up.
Either the back too arch or legs too far back.
Both of them.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
both of them.
And we'll have one that's just the back two arched there.
And really a great leg position. I mean, her leg's right underneath.
Yeah.
She's trying too hard.
Yeah. I kind of liken that as to that rider that doesn't practice very much, and so they never get really comfortable and like, oh my gosh, I got a show. I have to over exaggerate everything. And that's kind of what comes across in my mind when I see that in the show pen.
Exactly.
The trainer saying, sit up, get your elbows in, whatever. And then they just like overdo everything, excuse me, instead of just practicing.
I find that a lot with the young ladies that come in the barn, and you can almost watch them walk in the barns. The one that have fantastic posture, they're going to struggle with that a little bit, and they're really going to have to be trained to that body position where somebody's got to have eyes on and be telling them that's the spot, so that they can learn how to be there.
How about, can we talk about stirrup length? Can you tell me about stirrup length real quick?
Yeah, for me, if you take your legs out of that, both legs out of the stirrups and just let them hang, the bottom of that stirrup should hit you right in the ankle bone. And, that is the correct stirrup length for me. And, you can some people can put it there and still have a flat foot where their heel's not down and they're not making connection or pushing down in that stirrup. And there's exercises that we can do with that. But I feel like to adjust your saddle correctly, that's where your stirrup length needs to be.
And then Robin, maybe you can talk a little, or both of you, about rein length.
The rein length really goes as to each horse. However, I want them to have a soft connection to the bridle. And meaning if that hand guides or moves, I would love to have some form of a connection to the bridle within a very short amount of time, to their mouth. And, different horses require different things. So I have one horse in my barn right now that if you don't give him a little bit more release, you're in his way. Like, he wants you completely out of his way, and he will respond without barely moving your hand. And then the horse standing right next to him wants to have a little bit more feel. So the main thing is, I don't want you death gripping to where the horse looks like it's uncomfortable or, it's intimidated, whatever. But in the same boat, I certainly do not want a long, loose and floppy rein where there's no connection. And again, if something were to go wrong with that loose rein and all that horse were to jump sideways, if your hand ends up above your head, your rein was too long. You didn't have a good connection.
So
I totally agree. I always teach my horsemanship riders there needs to be 3 points of connection: your hand, your seat, and your lower leg. And I think that every horse requires a little bit different amount of contact, and it just takes practice and somebody watching to teach those people that are riding the horse just exactly where to be and what looks good, and let the horse get comfortable with that.
So I have a wild card question that I didn't ask you guys before. So when you guys teach your people to use their feet to wrap this horse up, how do they do that without getting their heels to go up?
Good question.
A lot of practice.
A lot of practice. And the first thing I try to remind people of is, A, keep your heel down, close your leg to your horse, be sure you can feel that rib cage, and then lift your heel as required. So, and if you always follow a process and do things the same, you're going to learn good muscle memory. So heel down, close your leg until you feel that rib cage, then lift your heel as required. Do not lift your heel first as you come in. You're not getting a good connection. You're not truly lifting that horse's back up. All you're doing is rubbing them up in the middle of their rib cage.
Yep.
I think longer-legged people really have a hard time with that. I think that's when we're out shopping for horses and we try to match horse and rider. We try to find one where their leg actually can hit the right spot of their horse. But every once in a while, like my son was a really good example. He's very tall and he had a very small horse, and he could just wrap around that thing and keep his heel down and use his lower leg and use his spur when he needed to. He just had a strong enough leg, and we worked at that enough to where he kept his heel down as he was talking, with his lower leg to that horse.
So I have one more question here. Can you guys tell me about the off arm and like what position you guys like to have that in when they're doing a pattern? Kelly?
I try to get them to match it as close as possible to their rein hand. I think as long as they're holding their rein hand in a good position, I feel like the offhand should also try to match that. I think if you get your elbow, I always say the point of your elbow needs to not be resting up on the front of your rib cage. It needs to be hang your arm straight down and then bend your elbow so that the knobby part or the pointy part of the inside of your elbow hits you right in the middle of your rib cage. And then, no higher than 90 degrees and, as close to 90 degrees as you can get. If, some people have to keep their hand down a little bit. It sort of depends on the length of their arm or whatever. But I think, 90 degrees is probably optimal with your offhand, as long as your rein hand is up there pretty close too.
And Kelly, I actually stole your line today. I was giving a lesson on FaceTime, and I did steal your line of just make your free hand match your riding hand, because I loved that. I've actually never heard that terminology, so thank you. And I'll play with the free hand on my riders depending upon them as to what looks the best. Definitely not above 90 degrees. And I sure don't want you pointing down below the pommel of the saddle, but I might move your elbow forward a little or pull it back. It all depends upon the rider, the length of their arm, and just what just lays naturally and very simple for them. But a really great, just general, Kelly said it wonderful, is just make it match your riding hand.
And if I could add to that, I would also say I'm a big stickler that you gotta kind of keep your thumb on top. Like if you have your rein hand turned sideways, like you're playing a piano, then that's wrong. And so both of those hands need to really be a straight line from where your elbow bends to the point of your thumb. So I think that opens your shoulders, squares up your body. And so, I get after them quite a bit about, turn your hand. And my riders know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that.
So I keep saying one more, but I'm thinking, go ahead.
I want to get to one of our, because we got 3 giveaways tonight, because we got a big show. So I got 3 giveaways. I want to get to one of the giveaways right now, and it's going to be 5 bags of Nutrena feed from our sponsor, Nutrena. And our first question is, name Kelly McDowell's first world champion horsemanship rider. First one to come up on the screen, on our screen.
AQHA
is the winner. You can't answer, Robin.
Okay.
And I want y'all to know I stole both your inputs from the other day. It was like, sweet. Yep, I'm going. I mean, I was super inspired this morning giving lessons. So Robin said he'd used Kelly's. I'm like, I used both of you guys, man. It was a good refresher for me. It was awesome to be able to visit with you guys the other day or yesterday morning about it. So it was awesome.
So I have another question about the body. Can you guys both describe about the head and the neck and chin, and especially in the circles? I mean, can you tell me if they get to cock their head a little bit to the left, or do they have to be square? Tell me what you guys think is the optimal position per rider.
Mindy Whitus is the winner. Pop that up there, Kona.
That would be my sister.
Oh, come on. All right. Does she have horses?
She does.
Okay, well, then she's good to go.
Fast typing. Nice work.
Awesome. All right. That means she's probably a first-time watcher, too, isn't she?
And she spelled his name right, too.
All right. We love first-time watchers. We love it.
So back to my head, like, can you guys talk about the head, neck, chin, and especially in the circles? Like, sometimes I see the girls turn their head a little bit. Where is that spot? Robin?
Go for it, Kelly.
Okay.
Hand off. Go, Kelly.
Who are we doing? All right, I'm on it.
Thank you.
We talked about this the other day, and for me, the correct spot is maybe an eighth of a circle ahead. I don't want you looking a whole quarter of a circle or a whole half a circle ahead. Some patterns, like today we did a little counter circle, and as they loped off, I told some of them who tend to look straight ahead and then get the rhythm of their horse and then start to steer. I said, you need to look at quite a bit ahead right as you do that transition. Mm-hmm. And so the way that works out is their circle comes around even a little bit quicker. So those, every once in a while I'll have somebody look farther ahead, look a quarter ahead or look a half ahead. But like my biggest rule is if you look that far ahead, don't come back. Don't go from half a circle ahead to straight ahead. Don't be taking your head and neck and your eyeballs back and forth on your circle. Find your spot that you're comfortable with, look ahead that amount, and stick with it.
Robin, you want to add to that?
For me, I tend to keep my riders' heads just a little bit more centered. I don't have any problem with their eyes kind of wandering and guiding them. And I like Kelly's like 1/8, and I complimented him on that yesterday when we spoke. But, I do not want your head past that eighth. I'm really big on you not looking too far ahead. I very much want you to stay in the moment of what is going on. And I preach the most important stride that you're taking is the one that's happening right then. Because if you're not connected to that stride, things are going to go wrong later on. I like my riders to have their head just soft and natural. I don't mind if it has motion, but I really love them to keep it a little bit more centered. And I actually preach a lot when they're riding. If you want to see something somewhere else, turn your horse. Okay. You need to know where you're going. And I joke, they're like, well, how am I supposed to know? And I just tell them to use the force. That's what I do. I use the force.
We love the force. We love the force. So, okay.
I have some riders, to go back to that, I have some riders that I tell, look straight over the top of your horse's head. Maybe look over the inside ear. And just in certain maneuvers, if they need a little help getting started on a turn or whatever, then I will have them look ahead a little bit just for a few steps. But don't get me wrong, I don't want you looking half a circle ahead all the time. I think that's incorrect.
Well, I think that just all leads to form to function, right? A lot of those riders that get to looking too far ahead, they start leaning somewhere where they shouldn't lean or start twisting their body or something like that. I mean, it shows up to the judges very easy when we see you're looking too far ahead. And something's typically going on with your horse as well. It's good that you're not looking at your horse, I suppose, but looking too far ahead is kind of going the other way.
Correct.
So I'm going to move to the scorecard for a minute, and this is what I'm looking for this time. Someone's going to talk about the maneuvers and the penalties, and then can you both, or all three actually, tell me how you judge their first impression when they come in the arena and like on their first maneuver? how do you already make how do you decide where they're at on your scorecard? Can you talk about that? Kelly, you want to start?
Why don't you put the walk video on? The start the pattern out of walk video.
For sure.
That's a great place to start.
You
know, when they start a pattern, I'm looking for somebody, and I coach this all the time. Don't ride like you're afraid to get to the next maneuver. You know, like we all talked about the other day, have a destination in mind. Get there, get through it, get to the next destination. Get there, get through it, get to the next one. And it's not a timed event, and it's not about being fast or slow. It's about being aggressive and being confident in your ability to guide and control your horse through those maneuvers. I always think that, you know, we could all just judge a horsemanship pattern if we just mark down the number of times a rider loses control of a horse. And I don't mean like it's turn and run off, but like loses contact, or just for one step or two steps, they lose that contact and control. We could judge the horsemanship pattern based on that pretty easily. And so I feel like that forward thinking, that forward motion really helps in keeping contact, keeping control, and keeping your flow going through your pattern.
Robin, you want to add on to that?
Of course, you know, and that's what I've preached forever. Like, I want you to have a destination. I do not like seeing a rider that is riding the brakes. And when they walk in up to the start cone or even begin, you know, Claire's example right here is she has a destination. She's assertive in what she's doing. She's confident in what she's doing. You know, I'm evaluating that connection to her horse, and I know her connection is good because of how that horse is stepping forward. It's taking one stride and putting one stride in front of the other. And again, like Kelly said, this is not a speed class. It's not about being the fastest necessarily, but have you ever tried to ride a bicycle as slow as you possibly can? Just, you know, all you're doing is twisting the wheel and going side to side, and the motion is never going one foot in front of the other. It's going laterally all the time. And to me, that's a really good visual example of someone that's Jake braking or whatever. That horse cannot truly step one foot in front of the other. So to give you Tim, that first impression, you know, I'm going to judge how they step into that first maneuver. That's my first impression that I really see. Obviously, I've looked at them, but, you know, how they step off, are they assertive? Are they confident? And I can normally tell at that point if I have a rider that wants to attack the pattern and they want to take charge and they want to dictate how things are going to go versus just being a passenger. So that's my first impression that I'm looking for.
Bradford, do you want to add anything to that? Because you're my third judge.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I just want to reiterate. I mean, these two guys are, you know, two of the best in our industry that I've learned a lot from. And as I've said many a time, I used to go camp at Robin's house. So I don't know 3-4 days in a row. I remember in the late 90s or early 2000s or whatever. And so a lot of what Robin is saying, I mean, I learned a lot of what I know from Robin. And I always go back to that well, you know, because we're always learning, you know, he's always learning. I'm always learning. We're all wanting to improve our game. And just the talk that we had yesterday morning, the four of us, you know, it was inspiring probably to all of us, you know, that we all use something from somebody else the next time, which has already been said tonight. But I just love the simplicity of having a destination, that piece in my mind. I mean, and that's what I was going to reiterate was, if you guys that are watching, just go back, you're going to want to watch this video a couple of times because there's so much in there. It's going to seem like a lot, but really when you listen to it, when you're talking about form to function and having a correct position, and it's going to be really hard to look too far ahead and keep your correct position and ride form to function and then have a destination where you're going. Like, all of those things really start to add up and make it and keep it a little bit more simple in your mind with whoever your horse trainer is. This is only going to make their life easier, right? So anyway, that's all I have to add to this piece right now, because it's just awesome, because it allows me to just keep it simple when you go out there and you keep trying to talk it when really it's not that hard.
So, you know, sometimes, Brad, when you get in trouble, It's not like the trail class where you have a designated length of stride that your horse has to take, or you want to get a certain landing to the pole. If you get in trouble and things are going wrong and your horse is getting, escaping you a little bit, if you'll go forward a tiny bit more, it will solve so many problems. And I'm not saying run, just hit the gas pedal once and it will solve so many of your problems, and it will get you through. You might not have the best pattern you wanted to have, but it might help you survive.
Yeah, that's right. I use Robin's bicycle comparison daily. I say that, and I don't think you and I have ever spoken about that in our entire lives. But I use that all the time. It's like riding a bike. If you're just sitting there riding the brake the whole time, it's going to be hard to balance and go forward. So just push them out there a little bit.
So I will borrow your term destination because that will apply to my class too. So I really like that term also. But I really need to go back to the overall form and effectiveness part of your judges sheet. Okay. I know you guys got the maneuvers, you got the penalties, but that little kicker box on the end, that overall form to effectiveness, can you guys all three kind of describe how you use that on in your boxes? Robin, you want to go first?
I most certainly can. So, for me, that's kind of the end story of what I felt about the entire story, the entire movie, whatever you want to call it, that I got to see. And when my riders come in, any rider comes in, I start with an average score. It goes 0 to 5, and every one of my riders starts at a 3. And I don't personally, I do. Let me reword this. I do change from class to class. If I'm judging a level 1 class, my spectrum changes as to what I expect out of the rider. So if I have just a phenomenal rider come in there, the score could tend to be a little bit higher because I live at the 3 as an average for the class. And I honestly live in a world of 2, 3, and 4. I'm not afraid to jump up to a 4.5 or a 5, but I go from my picture being correct or average, and that is my 3 rider, up to I have a good or a very good or an excellent. So I use my halves. I go from a 3.5 to a 4, and I have not given a 5 yet. I don't know if I have. I probably have seen a 5, but I don't know that I have given it yet. And then I only go down to a 2. I don't go below a 2. So if I have a rider that is having a lot of trouble and, they're trying, but things just are not working, I just leave them at a 2. Or if I have a rider that is just extremely ineffective for whatever reason, they're going to be at a 2 as well. But that for me personally it's my way to tell that rider what I thought of them. Just because they had dilemmas doesn't mean that they can't be a 4. And the example that I give is, in our amateur especially, we have a lot of our really strong amateurs are bringing along younger horses. And if I have, I'll just throw it out. One of my favorite riders to watch is a Whitney Walquist. I just love how she rides. And if I see Whitney riding a younger horse and she's bringing it along and communicating well and maybe having a little bit of dilemmas, but she's really doing a great job of teaching it and promoting good things for that horse, she might not be a 4 that day. She might be a 3.5, but she still might get into that 4 range for me. And not every judge looks at it the same way.
Sorry. Okay, Kelly.
I'm basically the same. I have an average in each class that, when the first horse walks to the first cone, I know what their F&E is going to be, and they can go up or they can go down. It's kind of a sliding scale, but if they just sort of go through the pattern, I know exactly what the score is going to be. If they really impress me, they're going to go up 1, might go up 2 if they really impress me. I'm the same as Robin. I'm never going to give a 1, not one time ever. I don't want to embarrass anybody. I feel like when they go look at the score sheets, they have a good idea what happened. Their score, if you look at the score sheet, it just kind of tells the story of the pattern. And I try not to just judge the class. I don't want to give somebody I'm pretty aware when I'm judging that the exhibitors like to call that the favorite exhibitor box, and I'm very aware. I don't want to give somebody a great big score in there and not give anybody else in the whole class that same score. I think we have some super top riders. I'm not going to give one person a 5 and everybody else a 2. That's never going to happen if I'm sitting in there. But I am going to give extra credit if they are wowing me, and for the most part the rest of them just sort of stay at average.
Yep.
Bradford, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, though I guess I'd say I walk in, I have an expectation for each class, whether it's a level 1 class or a level 2, 3 combined, or every once in a while we'll have just a level 2 class. But so I have my F&E kind of set what I believe that rider should be. And again, they can always build off of that. And just because a rider has a mistake does not, you as a judge and a horseman, you have to know, was that rider induced, or did the horse just have a bobble? And how that rider handles it afterwards, and how they rode to it and it just had a bobble. Again, like Robin's example of, if you have a young horse and you're teaching it along, that rider can still have a very good F&E, but obviously the maneuver scores are going to maybe lack just a little bit here or there. But I think the F&E is not going to explain exactly by itself how the pattern went. That's what the maneuver scores are for, right? The F&E is about the rider. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's super cool or neat that I've got 3 great horsemanship coaches and 3 great horsemanship judges here tonight. And so it's so beneficial for us to hear both sides of it, both from the coach's point of view and from the judge's point of view tonight. So we're very fortunate for you guys there. Anyone want to add anything before we go a little rapid fire?
I have one thing to add. I have another trivia question.
Go ahead.
To give away a $75 gift certificate to Kimes Ranch Jeans. And we are and this is my bad because I did not say it on the first round, but what was Robin Frid's first AQHA world champion in the horsemanship? As we go to rapid fire, we'll be watching our
I said AQHA.
To see who the Robin Frid's first AQHA world champion in the horsemanship. Here we go.
Little music.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for get your cards out.
Your cards. Here we go.
Y'all have your cards ready?
Robin and Fred. I worked hard on my questions, Robin and Fred.
I did set, just to let everyone know, I set a challenge out for Tim for great questions.
My God, that was so stressful. Okay.
Here we go.
Question number 1. Name your favorite Will Ferrell movie from the following. A, Elf. B, Old School. C, Anchorman. D, Talladega Nights. Elf, Old School, Anchorman, Talladega Nights. Your answers?
Talladega Nights for Robin. What do you got, Kelly?
I'm going to have to go with what Robin said. I'm not a big Will Ferrell fan, so I tend to turn it off when he comes on.
oh my gosh, Kelly.
Number 2.
I'm just kidding.
Which of these 4 old wise men could you have a drink with? Which of these 4 old wise men could you have a drink with? A, Jack Daniels. B, Jim Beam. C, Johnny Walker. D, Jose Cuervo. Which of these 4 old wise men could you have a drink with? Really? A little higher, Kelly?
Johnny Walker. Kelly, I can't see yours.
Go
right in front of your face. Right in front of your face. Or just say it, Kelly. What do you got? D.
D.
Jose. Okay, you ready for this one? If you could be a flavor of ice cream, which one of these would you be? You could be a flavor of ice cream. A, nutty coconut. B, gone bananas. C, rocky road. And D, death by chocolate. A, nutty coconut. B, gone bananas. C, rocky road. D, death by chocolate.
Oh, both Rocky Road. I love Rocky Road.
Easy one. Question 4. What do you like to barbecue at home? What do you like to barbecue at home? A, steaks. B, hamburgers. C, ribs. D, chicken.
Steaks for Frid.
And
I like cow.
I like to barbecue whatever Marnie's cooking.
Hey.
Okay, question number 5. Which Looney Tune character would make a great horsemanship coach? Which Looney Tune character would make a great horsemanship coach? A, Porky Pig. B, Bugs Bunny. C, Yosemite Sam. D, Daffy Duck. Like, I had a trainer for each of these characters. I could name a trainer, right? Like,
Great. Yosemite Sam. I would yes.
Good job.
I'm just trying to picture like Daffy Duck. Like,
I know a trainer who could. I don't want to say whose name. Okay. Number 6. Which. This is Robin Frid. This is Robin Frid question. Which of these large exotic cats have similar traits to yourself? Which of these large exotic cats have similar traits to yourself? A tiger. B, a leopard. C, a cheetah. D, a mountain lion. A, tiger. B, leopard. C, cheetah. D, mountain lion.
See if Robin changes his answer from the last show or something. Tiger King.
Okay.
I thought you were a cheetah, Frid.
I thought so too. 7. What popular line dance can you do? What popular line dance can you do? A, the electric slide. B, the Cupid shuffle. C, the cha-cha slide. And D, the Macarena. What popular line dance can you do? A, hero. Oh, E, none of the above. Okay. Okay. Number 8. Good to know. Okay, right. 8. Which female action hero would do best in virtual horsemanship class? Which female action hero would do best in virtual horsemanship class? A, Wonder Woman. B, Catwoman. C, the Black Widow. D, Harley Quinn.
Oh yeah.
I just want to see Catwoman.
Yes.
In her outfit.
Yes. Halle Berry. I want to see a Halle Berry in a horsemanship outfit, right?
I like that. Number 9. If you had 2 front row tickets, whose concert would you go to? If you had 2 front row tickets, whose concert would you go to? A, the Rolling Stones. B, Pink. C, Elton John. And D, the boss, Bruce Springsteen.
Oh, I thought you were going to have Christina Aguilera in there.
I just had the ones I've seen, so.
The boss.
Kelly McDowell. A.
The Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
Boy, you can't go wrong with any of those. But A and D would be my top.
Yeah.
Okay, this is my best question of the night, I think. I worked hard on this one. Which past Keep It Real show guest would you choose as a roping partner? Which past guest of the Keep It Real show would you choose as a roping partner? A, Leonard Berryhill. B, Robert Chown. C, Curtis Reynolds.
These are
D,
good.
Sal Canizero.
Wow.
Yeah?
These are good.
Come on. The win.
Getting a phone call.
Sorry,
Who'd you pick, Robert?
Jenny, he's busy.
Curtis.
We got
Curtis,
Leonard
okay.
and Curtis.
Nice.
Good
Nice.
questions, Tim.
I worked hard on that one. Oh my
Those
God.
were awesome.
Pressure. That was so much
Man.
pressure.
Well done, Tim.
Wow. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Ask Tina Vollmer how stressed I was about that. Wow.
I mean,
Let's
I was
break to the commercials.
pretty pumped about those questions, man. Those were great. Okay, we are going to take a quick break, but we do have a winner here. Miss Elizabeth Nabenshoe was our winner. Is Miss Stephanie Pullen was Robin's first AQHA world champion in the horsemanship, and I think you said it was 1999. Is that right? 99. Thank you all for participating. We still have another one coming, so hold tight. After the break, we will be right back.
Every once in a while, something comes along that could be a game changer. Enter Unishippers, a trusted shipping source for more than 30 years. If you need a reliable, fast shipping source, turn to a specialist that knows the unique shipping needs of the equine reproductive marketplace. As an authorized UPS reseller, Unishippers offers unbeatable shipping value. Let Unishippers deliver for you. Call Mark and his team today.
Caring for your horses is easy when there's a safe choice for you. If you need one feed for the whole barn, there's a safe choice. If your horses need gastric support, there's a safe choice for them too. Some horses need lower starch and sugar. You guessed it, there's a safe choice for them. There's also a safe choice for mares and foals, for seniors, and for easy keepers. All these horses can gain a lot with science-backed nutrition from Nutrena. Yours could too. For every horse, there's always a safe choice.
We are back on the Keeping It Real show here with Robin Frid and Kelly Mcdowall, along with my partner, Tim Kimura. Thanks for coming back, everybody. Congratulations, Liz, on your gift certificate. We got another one coming up here shortly. Everybody pay attention. So we want to backtrack just a minute because Mr. Kelly Mcdowall has some very important people in his life that he needs to mention, that he asked to mention in his growing up and in the horse business. And we also we kind of want to lead these guys into who inspires them, like who kind of keeps them rolling, who has kept them rolling in the past. Although we want to hear where they draw some of their inspiration from. So Kelly, please let us hear it, man.
All right. So I basically had one lesson when I was a kid that I can remember until I got out of college. And that was from my next door neighbor. Her name then was Betty McDaniel. Now it's Betty Mathis. She grabbed me one day before the county fair and asked me if I knew my leads, and took me over to her front yard on my fat little buckskin pony and taught me my leads in an afternoon. So and I still talk to her. We overnight at her house on the way to Congress every now and then. And really, like, just a helpful neighbor, not really a coach or a teacher for me, but just a helpful thing. And then had another lady that lived in my neighborhood named Diane Hoff, and she always had a bunch of paint horses around, and gave me a 2-year-old. I can't remember if he was a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old or what he was, but she had bought this fancy new young stallion and asked me if I wanted to break him. And I said, heck yeah. And the next thing she knew, I was riding him around the lawn with a halter and a lead rope. He'd never been ridden before. And I didn't know how to break or train a horse. So I just hopped on him and was riding around the yard with him. So those two people, in my neighborhood, they were fantastic. And then when I got to out of school, I worked for a place named Equine Oasis, and then another man named George Freeman. And then I went to Castle Rock, Colorado, and worked for a lady named Marilyn Alkire. And she was instrumental in where I'm at now. She let me take the truck and trailer and go to every horse show in the world and never complained about it one little bit, and introduced me to everybody that she'd been showing horses for a very long time, and introduced me to everyone she knew. And some of those people are still very good friends, and Marilyn and I are still very good friends, and can't say enough good things about that. And, when I decided to be a all-around horse trainer and a judge, I really didn't, the judging thing, I didn't know anything about all around. I just did pleasure. So I grabbed friends at horse shows when I decided I was going to be an all-around person. And Holly Hover took my showmanship people, and I would go stand behind her and listen to her help them at the horse show. And Andrea Simon, same thing. I can remember being at the Paint World and Andrea teaching all my clients the horsemanship pattern and didn't charge anybody a thing, didn't charge me a thing. Was just, both of those ladies have been just instrumental in my learning. And Carla Winberg, she's been there the whole time. She was one of my teachers in college and a great friend, and still is today. And I still send her videos of my students to see just for another pair of eyes to help me, like I said before, to watch the position of the rider and their connection and all that. I call on those three all the time. And, of course, my wife, Marnie, this ship doesn't sail without Marnie doing what she does. She does everything except the horse training. So can't thank her enough. And Danette Watson, of course, does all of the work for me at the barn and is a great help and has been for great years. So that's my list. Thanks for letting me say that.
Of course.
All
of
good.
course. Thank you. Robin, did you have anybody that inspires you that you want to that you get to do?
Thanks, Brad. So if Marnie helps him, the ship doesn't sail. I don't even have a ship without Jenny, and I think everyone knows that. So Jenny is the one that really inspires me. She's the one that pushes me the most, and is constantly, like I remember listening to Brett Parrish and talking about Candy, and she's the one that when I think I'm all that, and she's like, no, you're not. That doesn't look right or whatever. And she, without her, we would not be in our business where we are. I mentioned Garth and Sneesa earlier. I feel really fortunate that Garth and I are still really tight. We talk. We actually haven't as much through the pandemic, which is weird, but Garth and I probably talk 2-3 times a week at least. And he is still, training wise, a huge mentor to me. And then all of my buddies that I talk to often, I remember the first time Bobby Poland took me up to Connecticut. We went up there for a clinic. We went to work for Gretchen Mathis, and I met this big, tall Italian stallion guy. That's what Bobby called him, not me. And, Gino has turned into one of my greatest mentors, someone that I turn to often in training needs and just as a friend in general. So, shout out to Gino. Jason Gillum pushes me all the time. Brad pushes me, Brad Jewett, Jeff Malott, Bruce Walquist. So all of those guys, Bruce Vickery, Kelly McDowell, that the people that I see that are at the top. Right. I sometimes I play it off that I don't want to beat you, but I darn sure don't ever want you to beat me. Yeah. And I'm not worried about you beating me, but you better not beat my riders.
Right.
And if you do, I'm going to figure out how to get you back. And I hope you're doing the same with me. Yeah. And just people my mentors that I learned from, I learned a lot just watching and listening to Andy Mormon. She was someone that taught me a lot about body position and just getting my riders more connected. I mean, that woman was so wise and so smart. And, then training, Gil Gallion has taught me a ton. Cleve Wells has taught me a ton. Carol Metcalf taught me how to change leads. Steve Archer really was someone who taught me about getting my horsemanship horses better. So, I have a lot of people to thank and a lot of people that I still lean on and look for in guidance to make me better and to push me to be a better horseman.
Awesome.
So let's not lose sight of the target now, because now you two boys.
Tim's steering this ship. This ship.
I'm going to say it's your chance now to help the next generation. Okay, this is your chance. You guys are right here, and I need some information here. So let's get into some of these transitions. Okay, I'd love to talk about that, dig into it again. So maybe let's just talk about not basic transitions, but like jog to lope, walk to lope, what you guys are looking for, how you guys set your horses up or set your riders up to accomplish some of those. Kelly, you want to start, please?
It's that same thing we were talking about before, Tim. I always tell them to imagine you're walking that horse up a balance beam and you've got to go from a walk to a lope or a walk to an extended trot or whatever. You better be going forward when you hit the button to go. If you're sitting back and pulling if your forward is not equal to or greater than your backward, so if you're not pushing harder than you're pulling, that transition's not going to be that smooth. I like them to stay down in the bridle. For me, if a rider takes that extra step and asks them to push down in the bridle in a forward. And I'm not saying roll your spurs up and get them to throw their neck down. I'm saying make them extend that stride up into that upward transition. I think that's what we're looking for. For me, that's the forward motion and the getting to that destination that we keep talking about.
Robin, you want to add to that?
Oh, I mean, Kelly hit the nail on the head. I mean, that, in every one of the transitions, and I always want to have a process, and my process begins with, getting my horse into my leg. So it starts with your leg, pushing that horse forward to the bridle, and then, get your timing for the proper time to ask for that transition. If you don't have your horse underneath of you and collected and square, what's the point in trying to lope off? Take another couple extra strides and get the transition correct before you try to execute it. And that goes with the downward transitions as well. And Kelly said it perfect. I mean, pushing your horse to the bridle, to the destination, riding forward to whatever you have to do. And we've said that multiple times, but I think it's obvious that he and I both believe firmly that is a huge integral part of this class.
So I see this is super important. This jog, the extended jog, or wherever you guys want to call it tonight, to the regular jog. Can you talk about what you're looking for, the speed of that, and how that should be executed? Kelly, you want to start again?
I think in any gear, I'm looking for the rider. So let's go from jog to extended jog. I'm looking for that rider to be in a comfortable seat, the horse not going as slow as it can possibly go or as fast as it can possibly go at either one of those gears. Some horses are very smooth at the extended trot. Some are very smooth at the jog. I think you have to, as an exhibitor and a horseman, learn which of those gears to use when in a competition. You're trying to beat somebody else, so you got to learn which exactly gear you want to do and going from a jog to an extended jog. I like to see nothing from the rider. I like to have seen or see nothing where I feel like they practice that so much. It's just a seamless transition. Forward jog to a forward extended trot. Same thing with the lope to the extended lope. But I think we've got a video. I don't know if you can really tell on the videos tonight at the whatever's going on with the Wi-Fi. They're a little jumpy, but
the videos are showing up very clear on the live feed.
Okay, good.
On our feed, it looks just a little bit choppy, but
so
to the public,
throw on the fast lope to the regular lope or the jog to the lope. Some of those transitions that we did the other day, and we can talk about those.
Sure.
Yep, he's going to pull up this jog to lope. Nope, this is the fast to lope, but that's all right.
Fast lope to slow lope. And that's fine. It's all the same, really. It's forward to forward. Even when you're going when you're doing a downward transition, so from the extended lope to the regular lope, or from the extended jog to the regular jog, it's got to be forward transition. You have to maintain forward. You can't just sit on your pockets, kick your feet out, let slack go in your rein, and let that horse slow itself down. You've got to maintain control of its rib cage, its spine, both muscles on the sides of its spine, its hip, its neck, its mouth, everything. That you've got to remain in control of that transition, or it shows when you don't.
Robin, you want to add to this? I mean, we can go to the extended lope to the regular lope too, if you guys want to go both ways. Either one, Robin.
Kelly's taking the words right out of my mouth and everything he's saying, which is great. It's so much, and I can't even find more words other than that. Everything is about it going forward and being seamless. When I'm going to, a jog to an extended trot, I like to see that extended trot evolve. I like to see a couple strides of it building. I'm not one that wants to see you just shot out of a cannon and taking off. And, maybe my downward transition, I want to see it a little bit more assertive. I am very appreciative of a horse that can really be extending quickly and then just die into the ground, but continue going forward with a very slow maneuver. That's a huge degree of difficulty. That is the excellence that we're looking for, in challenging the pattern. I had something else in my head there, and I kind of lost my train of thought, so I might come back to it. Sorry.
Can I ask you one more from this then?
Yeah.
So how about one of these extensions to a walk? Is there a trick to that?
There's a low.
The toughest transitions there is coming like a hand gallop to a walk or an extended trot to a walk. And again, it's all about the process and the connection and the trust. And if I'm giving a gallop down to a walk, I can visualize it, and the best wording, and maybe Kelly can give better wording than I can, but that horse you've got to visualize and feel that horse walking underneath of you. And don't try to walk above it. It has to come up underneath of you, and you kind of follow that lead just a little bit. And, I don't really want to get too deep into the training part, but that's for me where, the spur stop thing is a lot of people like to ride because it's a simple way of doing things to me, but a spur stop takes all forward away from your horse. It is nothing more than a break, and it makes them ride off of their front end. And, coming down, I think the gallop down to the walk really emphasizes that. I want them to come down to a free, forward, nice stepping walk. And if you have something like a spur stop and you Jake break them down, you're going to lose your forward motion, and you could easily get a break a gate. That's where you're gonna get into your penalty situation to where your horse stops and then goes. And don't think that as judges we're not going to call that, because we didn't ask for a stop.
Kelly, you want to add on to any of those two transitions?
Yeah, I think one thing that I'm thinking about going on the downward transition, that watching Claire do the lope to the walk, I'm thinking you need to really would be going from a full stride at a lope, and that doesn't mean fast. That means taking a full, complete step to a full stride at the walk. And I think that's about as hard a thing as you can do, to go from a lope to a walk and have a full stride at the walk, or go from a walk to a lope and never have an interruption in that horse's extension or full stride length in both gears. I think that's a good way to think of that. But it's very, very difficult. I think that's the hardest thing to teach and learn.
Okay, so I'm going to lead changes from here. Okay, guys. So Rob, I'm going to let you start. Definitely need to talk about simple or flying lead changes, the differences, and how that's judged and how it should be executed. And we'll share this a little bit with all three of you.
Sure. So, the key is that's a age-old discussion of, well, I don't really have a great flying change yet, but they're not going to use me if I do a simple change. And that is 100% inaccurate. A correct simple lead change is going to get you a 0. Okay, that's what correct means to me. A correct or average. A correct simple lead change is, in the horsemanship, it's a break to a walk or jog for up to 3 strides, and then back into the lope. If you do not have a simultaneous flying lead change, if you do not have a flying lead change where the horse stays balanced and does not have to run to it or jump through it or dive sideways or whatever, you are far more credit earning doing a correct simple lead change. How do you get to that higher level? You show that you have your horse truly underneath of you, and it breaks down and it stays very underneath of you and very square, and steps softly back into gear. And now you're up into a good, or possibly even a very good situation. I totally understand that if you're trying to teach your horse to do a flying lead change, at some point you've got to try. And yes, you might fail sometimes. I totally understand that. But if you do not have a simultaneous lead change and your horse just cannot do it, or it's afraid of the flying change, do not think that just getting on the other lead, even if it is a poor example, is better than doing a 0 correct simple change.
So, Kelly, do you want to add anything onto this one here?
I think that's exactly right. I think the lead change, the simple, a good simple lead change is definitely better than a bad flying lead change.
Yep.
It's as simple as that. And, to perfect your lead change, it's the same thing we've been preaching all night long. It's got to be forward. It's got to stay with the flow of the movement. And, it's got to, the horse has to stay in your hand and stay on your leg and, keep that connection all the way through it. Don't let go and change leads. Set it up a little bit, change leads, and maintain that connection all the way through.
And, the flying change too, Tim, is, some people might bash me for saying this, but it's a different flying lead change than the Western riding. It's not that huge, big, huge change that's kind of goes out in front of you. It's a lead change that comes up underneath of you, and it's far more balanced. And to me, it far more matches the stride before and after. And yes, we have some horses that can do that change and swing their legs really, really beautiful. I've been fortunate to have a few that I thought could change as a +1/2 or a +1 in the Western riding and do it at horsemanship speed, but that's a really rare individual and special individual. But I want that lead change just to be balanced and square and up underneath of you, and I would love it to match the stride before and after.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. And that might be a misconception with some people. We're not judging the quality of the lead change. We're judging the ability of the rider to dictate to that horse when and where and how to change leads. So it doesn't bother me, and I give credit. If somebody has a hold of that horse and manipulates it, if it's in the right lead and they move it over half a step and then change leads, that's great. I mean, show me that you have control of that horse and your horse is willing to set up and change leads and not just try to make it a big giant Western riding lead change.
Bradford.
All good stuff there. And we have some questions about, can you walk and lead? Yes, you can. I think, it's in the rule book. Walk 1, 2, 3 strides, right? And same thing at the trot, 1 to 3 strides. And so I think the key is staying forward when you come to these to these simple lead changes, and not stopping, almost stopping, and then walking and then change. That, when a lot of people say, I don't get credit because I don't have a flying lead change. It's not that. It's you're not getting credit because it's an interrupted rhythm when you're going to that simple lead change, instead of saying my horse doesn't have a flying lead change. But that doesn't mean that you can't set it up as you're approaching that simple lead change area, setting it up for that simple lead change. And we have so many simple lead changes in our patterns these days that everybody should be practicing a lot of simple lead changes. So. Okay. We want to get to our last trivia question, and to follow suit with what we've had tonight, we've got another gift certificate giveaway, and I'm going to give $100 because it's Keeping It Real show, and I get to call the shots around here sometimes. So now, we got one more on this page over here that's a $100 gift certificate. So we're going to be able to X this page from Kimes Ranch Jeans out. We thank them so much for their sponsorship. But who was my first world champion in AQHA to win the horsemanship? In AQHA, who was my first world champion to ever win the horsemanship? And just a clue, I saw her on here tonight. So keep going, Tim. We'll watch.
No kidding.
We'll watch.
Okay, Kelly, I'm going to let you take this one. Let's talk about the spins and tell us what you were looking for, maybe how that exiting the spin too, maybe.
All right. For me, the spin has to be credit earning. It's got to be a forward maneuver. So the front feet have to be crossing over in front of each other, not behind. If I'm a pretty stickler on that, if they're crossing behind, they're probably going to get a minus on their maneuver score for the spin around. I'm not a big stickler on putting a pivot foot down. I have in the past and present have horses that do not like to stick that pivot foot, and I have worked at trying to get that pivot foot down, and they end up limping or something like that. So I, for one, feel like that is not necessarily a loss of control if they do not keep that pivot foot exactly down. As long as that front end's going around the back end and they're not traveling up and down the arena as they're turning around, that rider maintains a good position, maintains contact, I am not going to call that a negative situation. I'm going to call that a very positive. If they've got forward motion, back end going around the front end, rider maintaining position. As for getting in and out of those turns, I like to see a clear stop and then the start of a turn. I think I've had the fortunate advantage of having a few horses that anticipate that you're going to go right or left when you say whoa. So we really work hard on stop and then turn. And I don't mean stop and stand there for 3 seconds. I mean like stop and then start your turn. Make sure there's a clear stop and then you go. Same for exiting the turn. I think it's a very, very difficult maneuver to stop and then go right off the bat. So like 0 seconds in between, but say whoa and then lope off or trot off or whatever. I do not mind at all if somebody doesn't say whoa. If they can spin around and crack out of there at the lope, I'm fine with that. That doesn't bother me one little bit. As long as that was their game plan and it doesn't look like they were trying to get out of a bad turn or a bad position, then I'm all for that as well. I'm not very appreciative on my scorecard if you do the turn, stop, stand there, look like you forgot where you're going, and then take off at the lope. I'm not big on that. I like to see a little bit of rapid fire and ability to control your horse with an aggressive pace.
Robin?
A correct pivot for me is that, as Kelly said, the horse has got to be going forward. I like to see their hip kind of rotate up underneath of them a little bit and driving them forward. I'm not hardcore that they have to have a pivot foot, but I do want their hip to stay underneath of them. If I have a horse that has the ability to hold their pivot foot, I'm all about it. Trust me, that's wonderful. And if they can, pivot on their inside hind leg, great. And I do try to teach that way, but Kelly said it, not every horse has that ability. So I'm not going to cram it down their throat, but I am going to make sure that they keep that hip up underneath of them. And that pivot starts on the outside of their body. The outside of their body has got to rotate and come around. And, Jenny actually is the one through her showmanship that, listening to her coach, those pivots have got to have lateral motion in them. They've got to have a spot where that horse steps into the pivot laterally. And, doesn't matter when it is. I don't want to get all into that, but if you do not have that where they're spinning to the right and they have lateral motion to the right at some point, that's when you're going to lose their hip and their rib cage out from underneath of them. Correctness comes first, and speed is definitely degree of difficulty. I do not want to see a horse stop and just explode into this explosion, whatever you want to call it, of a spin. I like to see it evolve. I like to see the horse kind of shape up and round through its back. And it doesn't mean they have to get in slowly, but I like to see that horse's body shape and then the legs explode up underneath of it. And again, to mimic Kelly, for the transition out, let's say I'm going to lope out. If I kiss to them, that means stop, square your body, and step all at the same time. So I want to see that motion stop and then square up and lift their spine and then step into gear. And that is my truly high degree of difficulty. If for a lot of people, when they try to spin and just jump out, it turns into just that. It turns into a jump. They lose control of the horse's body. They no longer have a good connection. You're way better off just shutting the motion down, allowing the horse's energy to creep forward and then step into gear. Don't be afraid to over or under spin either. If you're afraid to over or under, especially overspin, you're going to die off in that last quadrant of that spin or even the last half, and you're going to really underturn poorly. So don't be afraid. My really, really strong riders, they're going to spin super fast. I just remind them, if they're a little bit ahead of you, shut it down and say whoa, and then allow your horse to step forward and get out. Don't try to be too aggressive. Going back to doing things correctly is always the smartest option.
So, okay.
Exactly.
Bradford, can I go for a double question here?
Absolutely.
Okay, here goes.
We got about 10 minutes.
Right. Double question here, guys. So how can a rider raise their score up from a 0 to a +0.5, +1, +2? Okay. What's it take on your scorecard to do that? And then 2, how's the rail work involved, like in your placings? So kind of how can you move up on your score in the pattern? And then how does the rail work get involved with raising or lowering from one of your scores? How's that? Kelly, I'll let you start.
I think just all the things we've been talking about tonight, moving from that novice level up into the level 3, it's all about practice and repetition and getting to know your horse and over and over and over. Go to horse shows, be comfortable, don't be nervous. Just like any other competition, you've got to get out there and stick it out there and learn to fail and be okay with that because you tried really hard is a big thing for me. Like, don't be afraid to make a mistake. You're going to have to show and not be afraid of making a mistake to get up there in the middle of those level 3 riders, whether that's select, amateur, youth, it doesn't make any difference. You got to kind of hang it out there and still remain correct in your maneuvers. As far as the rail goes, if I always feel like at the world shows, if my riders are fortunate enough to make the finals of the world show in the horsemanship, any division, they're probably a pretty good rider. Okay. And so my advice is always very simple. Try to disappear. Go in there, do what the announcer tells you to do. Keep your horsemanship. Don't long trot 900 miles an hour. Don't lope 900 miles an hour or be going so slow that it looks weird. Just sort of go with the flow of traffic, maintain your excellent horsemanship, and you're probably, for me anyway, when I'm judging, you're not going to move up on the scorecard unless somebody above you moves down on the rail. I don't move people up on the rail. I might move somebody down if they have a mistake or whatever, or if they, sometimes those old horses, they go in there and they don't want to go around on the rail, even though they did the pattern fantastically. So my advice is don't overdo it on the rail. Go in, keep your flow, keep your connection, and just, show that you're in control of your ride.
Robin?
So, how do you move your score up? The first thing to do that I preach is if you want to learn how to have a +1, learn how to have a 0 and learn how to have a 0 over and over and over and do it correctly. And then we turn into degree of difficulty. So, maybe you can 0 that pivot, but you can gallop better. So start trying to +1 one piece of the pattern at a time. Don't try to go from a 70 score to a 95. Learn to get a 75 and then learn to get an 80, or, start pushing yourself in different pieces to where you get comfortable with it through that repetition, and test yourself at home. Test how fast can I run? How fast can I spin? And I remember now earlier what I was going to talk about. When I lost my train of thought was, how fast is too fast? Okay. How fast is too fast? Too fast is the point that you cannot sit it, and it's the point that you cannot control it. So if you're testing your gallop, push that limits. But when you can't sit in the center and stay balanced, you're going too fast. And the point that you can't control that horse and it's leaning side to side or whatever, you're going too fast. Now take that same speed and try to figure both of those out. That's how you really start getting into your credit earning. But again, don't try to go from a 70 to a 90 score right away. Learn to do it in pieces and learn to do the pieces that you're stronger at, but don't be afraid of the ones that you're weaker at and keep pushing yourself. On your rail, Kelly said it best, just do it correctly. Go in and don't get carried away. The fastest guy does not have to win. I can remember, again, Jenny and I have been so fortunate to have some great riders in our time. And I had one rider that felt if you were going 20 miles an hour, if he, hint, went 30 miles an hour, he would beat you. And I remember in the Coliseum at the Congress, And he was extending his trot so fast and there was nowhere to go. He was going between horses instead of around them all over the place. And I'm just thinking, what on earth? Like, that is how to ruin your rail work right there. Stay in control, but also know your horse. If you have a horse that cannot lope super slow, don't try to make it do that. And, try to get Javamon around the arena, right? 17 one-hand horse in the horsemanship, he has a little bit more forward stride. Let him just go around to where he's comfortable. And if you have to get off the rail, that's okay. But in the same boat, if you can hide, as Kelly said, for a minute, there's nothing wrong with that either, because when you're stuck out there in the middle, if you don't have, really good control, you're jumping out in front of those judges. And when you do make a mistake, they are going to see it, no doubt.
So I have like 2 minutes left, guys. So I'm going to let you guys go around the track one more time. Tell me, 1 minute. Tell me, what do you think was the best characteristic of any of your world champions or any of your riders that you have in the field? What's their best characteristic of being a great horsemanship person?
What does it take? What does it take in your experience? What does it take?
Kelly.
Sorry. Go ahead,
For
Kelly.
me, it's really simple. I didn't get good at horsemanship until Clay McDowell and Natalia DiVincenti showed up on the scene, and I felt like I was going to be inadequate if I didn't get them big prizes. So I got help from my friends. I had people come help me watch them. We practiced. Those kids, they drugged me along with them. They were out there riding and riding and riding. Yeah. Now, Claire's taking right after them, and Brooke Jolstad. There's any number of people, like, they just get out there and they ride and they ride and they ride. And they're my inspiration. Cassie Riggert's another one here every day. Good. So I feel like, for young trainers, go get help. Call me, call Robin, call Brad, call anybody you see. Get some help for those people, and don't hold them back. Let them flourish.
Love it. Jackie Marlowe, did you hear that? You're my inspiration. She's out there. That's my select out there every day working to get better and better on her young horse. I love it. Go ahead,
Rob. Frid.
So I forgot to mention earlier, but too, it comes into this. I have one phone call every day. And I don't have a lot of best friends, but the ones that I have, I am tight with. And I have one phone call every day that if it doesn't come through, something is definitely wrong. And he and I talk about this at times, and that's Will Navenshoe. Will and I talk every morning before 8 o'clock. Sometimes it's a 5-minute conversation, and sometimes it's a 45-minute conversation trying to figure out life. And we've talked about this even recently. And Kelly said it so well in they are dragging you along, and my strong riders, what do they bring? They are aggressive, they are assertive, they are self-starters. And I'm just naming names, which maybe I shouldn't do, but I do anyways. Paris Rice, I used to have to pull logs off of the fire. She would go in and put 5 logs on the fire and make it flaming and burning, and I'd be like, 2 logs today, Paris, only 2. Back off, ease off. The other one is I could tell Michelle and Lauren both, like I could say, you run faster and you run harder than anyone else that you think possibly can, but make sure you can control it. And they would take that and go faster than I even said. So it's that self-starter. It's the person that you actually, a lot of times you can push and you can call on them and they show up every single time. It doesn't always work. I've seen it not work, but when it does, it's wonderful. And don't be afraid to be dead last.
Yep, that's what I was just going to add. I love it.
And
that's it.
One thing, guys, just to finish it, we retired Stretch Machine this year, who was a wonderful horsemanship horse. And as I always did when he was ready, I told Michelle, I'm like, you go in and you run faster and harder than anyone, or you explode trying. We exploded trying, no doubt. It happened. But you know what? Like, she walked out of the pen totally not disappointed because she gave everything that she had. Yep. And she left it all in the arena. And she walked out with a smile on her face and just said, he tried. So that's my advice to those riders that want to get better, and that's what our strong riders have.
It's good. Great information. Great wisdom. Great wisdom from two of the best in our industry right now. Thank you guys for joining us and sharing so much. And I know there's so much more to share, which a lot of you are going to see them next week in Oklahoma City, and I'm sure they'd be more than happy to let you bend their ear a little bit when time allows. So that's what we love about this platform, is maybe giving you guys an opportunity to go up to these people and say, hey, I saw you on the Keeping It Real show. Can I ask you a question, right? Hey, we do have a winner, and I just apologize it's taken so long, Dawn Forrest, to get to you. But Dawn Forrest was our winner on the last. Yay. She couldn't spell Carrie's first name. She came back and corrected it. But Dawn Forrest is our Kimes Ranch Jeans $100 gift certificate winner. Thank you, everybody, for participating. Thank you, everybody, for being here to watch. We're going to sign off because we got something else to run here. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Type the topic Thursday.
Thanks, Robin.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, guys. Y'all want to hang on. We'll catch you on the other side.
This has been a Kona Cam production. Thanks for watching. Tune in next time.